It's her middle name.
Hey, good afternoon. Take a seat. You got to realize probably the environment we're in, so we're just having a little bit of fun. Appreciate you all coming today. First and foremost, I would like to thank Frank and Darla Hoagland for allowing us to host this event on behalf of Bill Carpenter. So thank you very much. There's really no schedule for this. What we plan to do is open it up to, we'll start with Tom here in a minute, Bill's brother, to speak and talk about Bill and his life, and we'll open it up to anybody else that would like to say something on behalf of Bill, or maybe tell a story. This is really laid back. I have plenty of stories to tell about Bill.
We want to hear stories.
But I can probably tell you 2 of them.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Right. Because it just might, it would probably flip the boat altogether. But, so after everybody talks and, kind of remembers him in their way, and if you don't feel comfortable with saying anything, that's fine too. And then we'll have Tom say the blessing on the food that has been provided. Thank you, Gary and Jennifer. I got it. I don't know everybody in here, so please, if you want to, if and when you stand up to talk, introduce yourself. Again, my name is Mason Boyce, sir.
They just have them come up front.
If you want to come up front, you can. I'm not going to put that pressure on you, because being in front of the limelight, you got to sometimes have that training. We're not always as good as Frank is at public speaking. So with that, appreciate you all coming to remember Bill today, and I would like to turn it over to Tom Carpenter. This would be Bill's big brother.
Right.
Thank you for coming. Appreciate you.
Well, as Mason said, if you don't know me, I'm Tom Carpenter. I'm Bill's big brother, and loved him dearly. And I could say he had a heart of gold, probably the size of a war stove, and he was always eager to help people, whether it be especially veterans. He helped me, he helped many other veterans, and he would go out of his way to gain information, and actually on many times people, when he was helping a veteran, he'd say, well, I don't know where that's at, and Bill would come down and say, get in the truck, I'll take you out there, we'll get you started, and we'll get you in on things, okay? So, and I'm going to tell some stories about Bill that hopefully will get some laughs. And also, we used to talk daily, almost daily or every other day. We'd talk on the phone, and we'd go over things and everything. And for those of you who don't know, Bill and I were in Vietnam together, different times though. I was over there about almost a year before he got there. And then we met, and then, I left and he continued on, and then I went back again, and both of us were wounded in Vietnam. So, and then later on in the years, Bill called me up one day and said, do you remember what you told me when we first met in Vietnam? I said, no, Bill, I really can't remember what I said. He said, you looked me straight in the eye and you said, Bill, over here, it's not like walking through Summers Woods with a .22 rifle. And so So that was one of the things. And then this next story, and we used to tell stories back and forth, you know, and different things, and we remember different things. And so, and I told him the story I'm going to tell you, I told him, and Bill told me, you know, Tom, I have told that story, I can't tell you how many times. And he said, every time I tell that story, there's always somebody in the crowd that reacts a certain way, okay? And we used to say, there's an old saying about getting something for nothing, or somebody got over on somebody else. Everybody with that. So I worked with a guy, his name was Joe Jaramillo. He was from Silver City, New Mexico. And he said, when I was 16 years old, and I had a brother we called Junior who was 15, he said, so I went to my dad and said, Dad, deer season's going to be coming up. If I get the money, can I get a 30-06 rifle? And he said, his dad said, yeah, Joe, you go ahead. He said, for that summer, I washed cars, I cut grass, I pruned rose bushes, he said, and guess what my brother was doing? Junior. Junior was laying up around the pool. He wasn't doing anything, just having a good old time. He said, so come September, we always went to El Paso for a big family reunion, and that's what I was going to buy my 30-06. He said, so we get there, have the family reunion, getting ready to go home, and Dad said, well, let's go down and pick up that rifle. He said, so they go in there, get the rifle down, and Joe pays his money. And then his dad said, well, since we're here, why don't we just get one for Junior too? and he said, here's Junior. Junior hadn't hit a lick, and the same thing, he got his whatever. So Bill said, every time I told that story, someone would say, yeah, I knew an uncle. And remember what happened to him, and so on and so forth. And then I want to tell you one more story. I know that many of you may know this. If you raise your hand in here if you knew this. How many of you knew that Bill was the businessman, an entrepreneur? Wow.
Well,
Okay.
maybe.
So listen to this here. So Bill used to tell this story like when he was working on construction. Now you got to remember when we say the money. This is back in late 70s or early 80s, around that time there. So when Bill's working on construction, what he would do is he'd buy a buck knife. Everybody knows about the folding buck knives, right? He'd buy a buck knife, and at that time there, that buck knife probably ran $15 at the most. Okay. Well, then he'd go down on a construction site and he had a deck of cards, and he would say to people, "Hey, you want to buy a ticket on a buck knife for $1? You want to buy it?" So, and then if the guy said, "Yeah," they cut the card into like the ace of spades. Here's your half. I got this half. And then what do you do after he sold the deck of cards, $52 versus $15? Then the winner would get it, and then Bill always chuckled. He said, like Jerry Clower, you got to get by on that 3%. So he was a businessman and an entrepreneur. So anyway, so those are my stories about my brother. I dearly love him. I miss him terribly, but he's at peace. He's at rest at peace, and we're glad that everybody came here to remember, my brother. So thank you, and I'll sit down and let somebody else have the floor.
So, for those of you that don't know me, and I'm looking forward to meeting everybody here. Some faces I will recognize. I'm Sue's, Bill's baby sister. I just wanted to reiterate what Tom was saying about his advocacy with the veterans. I mean, that was a big part of his life. you know, and also the part where I think everybody in here can probably say, I talk to Bill every day. I mean, I know a lot of us can say that, you know, he was the telegraph operator that kept us informed about everybody else, so we all knew what was going on with every other member of the family and, you know, and his Army buddies and things like that, so I'm looking forward to actually hearing Army story buddies, because I've heard them from Bill's side, but there's probably something he hasn't told us, and I'd like to hear, you know, from you guys, but I have a story here from one of our cousins who couldn't be here, Ron Long, who lives in Salt Lake City, Utah, and I live in Montana. So Ron and I talk a lot, and so I'm just going to read this direct from the text he sent me. He says, Bill and his guns, right? Familiar topic. I remember this time when Bill, Bob, and Ronnie Long and me were all over on the strip pits behind the farm I lived on Warren Ridge. We were going to fish and camp out. 3 of us had our poles and bobbers in the water, but Bill went up on the side of this cliff. All of a sudden we hear bing, bing, bam, bam. Knucklehead Bill was up there shooting at our bobbers. The only one he hit was mine. I mean, I could go on and on. We all have lots of stories to tell, but I'll give other people time to come up and talk. But please share. We'd love to hear them all. Thank you.
Well, my name's Bill Carpenter. I'm Bill's oldest nephew. So he started me on the love of guns when I was very small. He gave me my first gun magazine. So we always talked about guns and buying guns, and eventually as I got older that kind of waned on me, but it never waned on him. You know, he was always wheeling and dealing and buying and trading and, you know, talking about this one and that one. And but to reiterate what has already been said up here, he was very generous. Very patriotic and kind. And I got 2 stories I'll tell about Bill. For anybody that knew him, he did not have a love for Marines. And that went all the way back to his time in Vietnam, and it had something to do with some things that happened with the Marines. They didn't want to do what they want. They didn't want to help them in a particular situation. So he had no love for Marines. So if you're old enough, you remember that in the magazines they used to have little cards that you could fill out. They were like for recruiting. So I was in high school. I was getting ready to go in the Army, so this was in like 1982, and he was living with my grandparents. So I was on my way to the Army, so I filled out a recruiting card for the Marine Corps, and I threw it in the mailbox. I forgot all about it. So a couple months later, he's downstairs taking a shower. He was getting ready to go out on a date, and the phone rang. My grandmother answered the phone, and she opens up the door, and, Bill, there's a phone call for you. He comes running upstairs about half wet, thinking it's his date calling. Hello? Yeah, this is Staff Sergeant Johnson from the United States Marine Corps. We understand you're interested in joining the Marine Corps. So, who is this? And the guy went through the whole spiel again, and then he said, buddy, I went to Vietnam with the Army. The last thing I want to do is join the Marine Corps. And then another quick story. You know, Bill was always on alert whenever he was out. I mean, he had heightened awareness. You know, I mean, he'd been in some gunfights, been shot and that kind of thing.
Several.
Yes, and he was always, you know, whenever he would go somewhere, he was always, you know, looking around and seeing what was going on. And so I came back through here in 2022. I was going to meet a friend in Maryland, so I got a hold of my uncle, and we were going to have lunch at the Cracker Barrel out in St. Clairsville. So I had pulled into the parking lot in my car, and I was waiting on him, and He pulled in his truck, but he didn't know I was there. So I just watched. He opened up his door and he threw his leg out. I'm expecting him to get out and walk in, but he doesn't. He gets out, or he just has his legs, and I can kind of look, and I can see he's monkeying around on his phone. So I got out of my car and I walked the long way around. I came up and he's sitting there, and before he could see me, I banged the side of his truck. And if you ever been around him, you know, I banged the side of the truck and he jumped. You're so lucky. You're so lucky. Yeah, but I love my uncle dearly, and we miss him. And he made a good contribution while he was here. Thank you.
I guess I'll continue the nephew trend here. Just going to grab for show and tell. So the thing I can say about Uncle Bill is, if you go get your Webster's dictionary and open it up and look up the definition larger than life, you'll find a picture of Bill right there in the dictionary. If there's ever a term that described him, he was larger than life. So many stories, and you know, as we said, if we all got started telling our Uncle Bill stories, we'd be here till next Saturday. Right? But we're looking forward to hearing some of them. When Bill started telling a story, you always had to stop and listen, because you were never sure if it was going to end up with Bill laughing at the end or being ready to choke someone out. But it was going to be a good story no matter which way it went. How many have heard the orangutan story?
Oh, yeah.
Everybody in the Ohio Valley that listens to Bloom Daddies heard the orangutan story. How many have heard the tomahawk story?
Oh, yeah.
All right, so I rest my case. One of those is that Bill laughing at the end. One's him being ready to, choke somebody out at the end. But it was a good story. And if you want to hear the tomahawk story, ask somebody that knows it. It's a good one. So I was probably well into elementary school before I started calling him Uncle Bill, because when I was a kid, we all called him Uncle Smiles. That was the name that, in the family, he was Uncle Smiles. And I'm not sure where that, I suspect that Uncle Tom was the origination of that. I don't know, but that was just the name that he was given. And I'm sure it was because of his sunny disposition.
No.
As Bill got older, I live down in Kentucky now. I grew up here in the valley, but I live down in Kentucky now. But I think as he got older and wasn't able to get out and around as much, he kind of lived vicariously through me a little bit. We were always, texting or calling or talking about, guns or hunting or whatever the case may be. And, he'd call me up and, hey, when's your deer season open? Well, it opens, 3 weeks from now on Saturday. And probably 75% of the time, he'd call me up the Monday before the season opened. You have any luck this weekend? I said, no, it doesn't open till next weekend. But then when, then he'd always want to know, do you have any luck? Did you get anything? How big was it? What rifle did you use? What ammo was it? How far did it run? I mean, just all the details, right? So he was, because he couldn't get out and enjoy some of that stuff as he got older, and he just kind of lived vicariously. And I think he enjoyed hearing the stories. And I was always, I probably talked more to Bill in the last 10 years than I did in the first 50 years of my life, because he just kept in touch. As Sue said, he was the one who kept in touch with everybody in the family. I've got a couple of quick stories I'll tell about him that's hunting related. First one, back in about mid-90s, I was living and working in Columbus, and had a buddy at work there. His name was Gino Alvarez, and Gino had come up from Puerto Rico. He was Puerto Rican, and he'd come up to go to OU to college, and then just decided to stay. And we kind of had similar interests, guns and hunting and all that stuff. So this, you know, after we'd kind of established a friendship, I said, hey, you know, why don't you? I'm going down to the hunt with my, you know, deer season with my uncle, my cousins. I said, why don't you come down and hunt with us? All right. So he comes down, and we come up to, you know, Grand and Pap's house, and we're going to go out there hunting. First day out, Gino shoots a deer, and Gino he was always just looking for freezer meat. He didn't, you know, he really wasn't, you know, hunting for big horns or anything like that. He just wanted some meat for the freezer. But he kills this deer, and we all kind of gathered around there talking a little bit. Bill said to him, he says, Gino, he says, my ancestors been killing deer in this area for the last 200 years, he said. But you're probably the first Puerto Rican to ever do it. And then the second one, another deer hunting story. This was a muzzleloader season story. We come up, go muzzleloader hunting, and we're hunting on the Culligan farm, which is up on top of the ridge there above Grand and Pap's house. And we park the truck and get out. It's, you know, early in the morning there. We're walking across this field on the top, and all of a sudden Bill stops. He pulls up his gun and squeezes the trigger, and pop, the cap goes off. No boom. Puts another cap on, pop, cap goes off, no boom. I said, what are you shooting at? He said, there's a deer laying right over there. It took me a minute to see it. There's a doe laying down there, you know, I don't know, 50, 75 yards away. So I pulled up, shot. Well, the deer had been laying up against a little sapling about as big around my arm, and when I shot, I hit that sapling. The deer jumps up, runs off. So we walked over and looked, no blood, no hair. So since we made all this noise, good time for Bill to fix his gun, right? So for those who don't know, when a muzzleloader won't go off like that, usually it's because the powder got clumped up and didn't get over underneath the nipple where the cap is. So you take your little tool, you unscrew the nipple, you trickle a little bit of powder down there, put the nipple back on, squeeze. So that's what Bill does. No boom. We tried it again. No boom. So figured, okay, the powder must be wet and it won't ignite. So then the next step is you screw this thing on the end of your ramrod called a ball puller, and you put that down the barrel and you screw that into the lead ball and you pull it out the muzzle. So he's screwing it down and get it started in that ball, and it won't start, and it won't start, and it won't start. And, you know, Bill's fuse wasn't real long. And you could just see his blood pressure going up. His blood pressure going up. And first he starts off and he's muttering and and that, you know, with every iteration here, it gets higher and higher until finally, you know, the bark's peeling off some of the trees around us, right? And finally he gives up on it. And there's nothing left to do but for us to go back down to Grand and Pap's house so he can, you know, figure out what's going on with this muzzleloader. So back to the truck we go, hop in the truck, drive back down to the house. We're all hanging out outside while he goes in the basement trying to figure out what's going on with his muzzleloader. He comes out a little bit later. You figure out what was going on? Yeah. Did you get that ball out of there? No. No ball in it. So we had left the house that morning and he hadn't loaded his muzzleloader. He just put a cap on it when we got out of the truck. Probably because he was running around looking for his truck keys so that we could leave in the morning. If you know, you know. And Bill taught me a lot about hunting. You know, he, as he did with a bunch of others, but taught me a lot about hunting, particularly deer hunting. One thing he used to say all the time, and I've endeavored to pass it on to the young hunters that I've been privileged to train up over the years, and Bill would say, "You boys start dragging that deer, I'll go get the truck." David and Michael were over there shaking their heads. The one thing that Bill never taught me was how to drag a deer, because I never saw him drag one. He was always, and sometimes we'd be a mile down in the strip pits, dragging his deer out. Bill's going to get the truck. But the last thing I'll end with this is, I was honored and privileged to be able to take possession of Bill's flintlock rifle. And I thank David and Michael for allowing me to do that. I fully intend to use it and take a deer with it this fall or at the earliest possible moment. But back when I was about 4th grade, and for those of you that are counting, that's almost 50 years ago, Bill bought me my first hunting knife. And up until about 7 or 8 years ago, this was the only hunting knife that I owned. I can't begin to tell you how many deer, turkeys, grouse, rabbits, pheasants, and whatnot this knife's been used on over the years. And I still use it from time to time, but when I get that flintlock out this fall, this will be the knife I'll be carrying. I think Bill would be happy to know that.
My name's Gary Long, Bill's cousin. About 20 years ago, he came over home. He said, my 22's here, been here for 40 years, I want it back. Got 2 black and white pictures from the 50s, a Christmas tree. He said, look in the corner, that little 22's in the corner. And it was. So he said, what I gotta do to get my gun back? I said, follow me downstairs. So he got his gun back. And then he really liked my grandkids. And I called him and said, hey, we got a baby girl 14 years ago. He said, what'd you name her? We said, Kennedy. He said, why didn't they name her Reagan? And then we were at a yard sale in the Amish country, and the guy had a Tiger Force book there for $1. And Bill's going on and on about that book. And that guy's like, it's not that good. How about the Bill Carpenter? He said, nah. And then Bill said, hey, I'm Bill Carpenter. And then the guy wanted him to sign the book. We took a couple trips to Gettysburg. We went to Antietam and Gettysburg and had a lot of fun. Then one time we were going to Ron's house and we stopped to get gas. And a boat pulled in with a truck, and I wanted Bill to see it. So I opened up the passenger door to show Bill. Right now, he has a 38 in my gut. 75 years old, I'd never seen him move so fast. So that's just some of the stories. We did a lot together, and I really miss it.
I'll go next. Before there were a lot of you, there was me. We grew up together on top of the hill, and Bill was a hard worker. He got along with Mrs. Scammyhorn, which is nobody could do. I had heard that she had shot at people. Bill got along great with her. There was Mrs. Pyle on top of the hill, worked him to death and gave him pennies, which he didn't appreciate, but he kept going back. But Bill and I would go out in the woods, make a campfire, can of soup. So one day we left our house, had a can of Campbell's chicken noodle soup, went down in the woods, warmed it up. My mom gets home from Woolworths. Mrs. Pyle's on the phone. Crystal, Bill and John took a can of soup down over the hill. My mom goes, thank you. Bill told me one time he was on the phone, which we had that community phone. Party line. She was on it. Bill was on there talking, and he could hear stuff in the background, and he goes, Mrs. Pyle, I'm trying to have a conversation here. She goes, I'm not listening. And he told me that if Osama bin Laden had been hiding out in our neighborhood, she would have ratted him out. She sat in her bedroom with binoculars and watched everything that went on down below. And when we grew up, we had 5 sets of parents or more in our neighborhood. Everywhere you went, there was a set of adults that made you behave and do what was right. Didn't matter where you went, you could get beat, you could whatever. Or they'd call your parents and let you know. And I loved his parents. His parents, when I'd be walking, I'd always look. Mr. Carpenter would pick me up and bring me home. That's the way that neighborhood was. We looked out for each other. Bill always told me, I'm going away. I cut his grass, I shoveled his snow, just to make it look like somebody was there. And I did that for his parents too. I loved them. I loved them. Mr. and Mrs. Carpenter. They were great. And then I got to tell you, he told me he wanted to go to the service. So I'm a freshman at Warren Consolidated in Spanish class. And I tell this story to my family. Miss Whippo told everybody she had a projector, 25 questions about Spanish. And she says, I want you to sign your name at the top, 1 to 25, answer the questions. We do that. She's looking at it, and Bill was in that class, and she says, you know, Bill, you're not the smartest, but you surely are the neatest. He had wrote Bill Carpenter 1 through 25 and not one answer. Not one answer. He was going to the service. And I'm going to tell you something, Tom. He loved you. You were his hero. You made his life. He was 15 years old. You joined the service. Ran away from home. Yeah, and he told me, Mr. Carpenter and him went around looking for you and couldn't find you. You had enlisted. So there was one other thing. Nuts, I forgot about it. Oh, we go to a gun show at Marshall County down in Moundsville. And Bill wore his Tiger Force hat. Now, he had a rifle on his back that he carried around with all the information about it and what he wanted. And you're down there, you're walking around veterans from the 101st Airborne, 82nd Airborne, everybody with their hats on. And I'm walking behind Bill, and when they looked up and saw that Tiger Force hat, they got out of his road. They moved aside. It was like the Red Sea parting. And I went home and told my wife, I just saw something that blew my mind. The respect that the other men had for him. Because when they saw that hat, they parted for him. They let him go. First and foremost, they let him go. And the bad part about it is, I have to drive by his house every day, and I'm looking for him. I miss him so. We had so much fun sitting at the table and talking about all of you. He was the telegraph. He did. He told me all about you. Him and Tub would go down and say goodbye to the 101st Airborne when they were headed overseas. I don't know how many of you knew that, but they would take a trip down south, say goodbye to him as they headed overseas. He's quite a man. I could go on and on, but I won't. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Rich Ferguson. I'm a former sheriff of Brooke County, West Virginia. Knew Bill quite well. Saw all the ups and downs and everything. Most were ups. Shortly, things I want to express, not all the macho things and everything. What I noticed about him was, first of all, if we go out to eat, he had the best table manners I've ever seen of anybody. I have one other buddy that had great table manners, so that means a lot. And I know you all are rushing through thoughts on him and everything, and it's a sad day. He just shouldn't be gone, but that's not for me to say. The other thing that I really noted on him was his intelligence. Man loved to read, And he read it, we'd go, maybe to a gun show, or we'd be down to something, and he'd find a book, pull them out. I felt actually embarrassed. I said, maybe I better buy a book. I thought I've read everything, but, you know, I'm retired, but he'd pull them out and we did, you know. So those were impressions that I had of him. You can use the word kindness, but you can look on the other side, he'd drop a cap on your ass in a second. So those are good things, and he had good sense. It was such a pleasure for him to be my friend, and God bless Bill Carpenter.
For those of you that don't know me, my name's Chad. I'm Bill's nephew, but I don't ever remember him calling me Chad. It was always Chad Andrew. He always called me by both my first and my middle name. If somebody mentions one of the stories about Bill, if you hadn't heard, ask the Tomahawk story. If you also hadn't heard the twist story, ask somebody about that one. I'm not going to get into that. But. So when I was, right before I was born, my parents built a house right about halfway up Connerville Hill there. And I was about 4 years old, and there was a little creek that ran along the road there. And we weren't supposed to be down at the creek or we would get the belt. Well, one day Bill, he was I think working for the Brilliant PD at the time. But he was on his way up to his mom and dad's house in his cruiser, and he caught me down there by the road, and he pulled in the driveway and he got out. He said, "Hey, what'd I tell you about getting down there by that road?" And I knew I'd had it. He said, "Get over here." And he slapped the cuffs on me and put me in the back. And we started up the hill with the sirens blazing. I thought it was over. I was closest in age with his boys, so we were always playing as kids up at our grandparents' house, going out in the woods and stuff. And one time we were up there, and I was a young teenager, and we were getting ready to leave. And that house could get quite warm. And if you can picture the front of the house, there's a window right there by the porch. And my mom was driving, I wasn't driving yet. And we were backing out of the driveway. You remember this? Bill was trying to get, it was an old wooden window. He was trying to get that window open, and it had only opened about that far. And he was going, just hitting it as hard as he could hit it, and it wasn't open. And finally, I'm watching him as we're backing out of the driveway. Finally, he hit it, and that window went, choop, choop. And the look on his face, seeing him through that window, it's like Adam said the other day, there's a reason his nickname was Smiles. There was one other thing I wanted to share is that my grandmother, his mom, when she was starting to get dementia, you know, she would say some pretty funny things. And one day, Bill was, I forget what they were talking about, but he was using some colorful language. And she said, "Bill, you better watch what you're saying or you're going to lose your pension." There's lots and lots of stories that we all could share, I'm sure. Well, I'll give you one more. So when I was in third, fourth grade, somewhere around there, we had moved to Columbus, and we were living on the east side of Columbus. And Bill came out. We lived close to the Eastland Mall, if anybody knew where that was. Bill came out. It was getting close to Christmas time, and he was going to take me to the mall to get something for my mom for Christmas. Had that old Bronco. And So we get, those of you that know Bill, he always had at least, you know, 1 or 2 guns on him, you know. Well, we get out of the Bronco to go in the mall, and he pulls out this knife. It's, you know, it looked like a machete, and he's sticking that down the back of his pants. I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "In case we get mugged."
Hello, my name is Vicki Bruno. I am neighbor of Bill's. He used to sit around our table and talk about stories about Vietnam, and I loved him telling us stories because, you know, it gave us a perspective of what went on. He also would tell me that he would go back to Vietnam every once in a while, and that he loved the people there. He could talk fluent Vietnamese, and he said it's a beautiful country. He said if you ever have a chance to go there because it's beautiful. And he bought me the Tiger Force book, and he took it down on one of his trips. I think it was in Kentucky, where he had people that were in that book sign it for me. So when I wanted to read it, matter of fact, I took it to the beach to read, but not that book. I went to the library and bought the book because I'm not going to get sand and water on my book. And my daughter wants to read it, and I said, you'll have to go to the library to get the book because my book's special. But I'll tell you one story that I worked at the Brand Post Office, and my postmaster wanted my son to put a stereo in for his girlfriend in her car. So I come to work the next day, and he said, Vicki, I met your neighbor guy. And I'm like, yeah? And he said, yeah, I come up there and your son wasn't home yet. And he says, I'm sitting in my car. He says, here comes a 4-wheeler. And he says, this guy has an AK-47 on him. And he says to me, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? I watch their house when they're not here. And he says, I'm sorry, I'm just here to get a stereo put in, and he didn't come home from work yet. So he says, yeah, I met your neighbor guy. So I miss Bill. You know, I talked to him in October and said, we're going to Mexico, Bill. He used to say, are you okay going to Mexico, Vicki? And I'd say, yeah, we're okay, Bill. And he'd say, okay, Miss Vicki. He always called me Miss Vicki. We called him Mr. Bill. And he said, I'll watch your house. I'll be over and I'll take care of things, and I'll ride around and make sure nobody comes by your house. So I'm like John. I look for him as I come up the hill, and he sat on his porch, and no cars are there, and I really miss Mr. Bill. So.
Sure, no one knows me here. I only got to know Bill the last 3 years of his life, but he was one of the best friends I had. I started a YouTube channel and hunting arrowheads on the river, and Bill liked that. I guess he watched that a lot, and he contacted me. And I had a lot of people contacting me, you know. It was getting overwhelming, and I kind of pushed him off, and I shouldn't have done that. Because later, he showed up at my house. He brought gifts, and he was there. He sat with me and my wife for probably 3 hours. And he told the orangutan story. how he shot the last Indian in Jefferson County, Ohio. I don't know if anybody's heard that one. But he must have been a man of habit, because I'm hearing similarities. He called me 3 or 4 times a week. And I had a story the last time he was down, but you kind of took my story, but a little different. He was talking about, I told him I never shot a flintlock rifle. Well, I'm going to bring that down this Sunday or Saturday. We're going to shoot it. He said, I got that Jeremiah Johnson, that 50 caliber Hawken. I'm going to bring that and let you shoot it too. So he's down there and we were shooting the gun. I shot the flintlock and he said, let's load up this Hawken. He put the ball in there. Same thing happened with you. I'm ready for this thing to, I'm thinking it's going to knock me back, and it cap went off and that was it. Get another one on there. Put another one on. After about 3, he said, well, you got a little wrench. So we took the nipple out of there and he poured a little powder in there. We must have tried 3 or 4 more times. He was getting mad. And I said, well, let's just go have some pizza. Next time you come down, we'll shoot it. And he calls me about 2 days later, you ain't gonna believe this. And I thought you were gonna say the same thing. He said, I went to my buddy's and he's got one of them little corkscrew things and he pulled that round out. I forgot to put the powder down.
That was the guy that pulled the ball.
Yeah, he said, I forgot to put the powder in there.
I just wanted to, I'll just stay right here. Bill came to my house. My name's Ron Clear. Bill was a regular at my house. He and Gary always came up. Bill always had a gun that needed fixed. And I fixed a few for him. And that muzzle loader, he came up and he says, man, I took it down to my friends and we tried to shoot it and it won't go off. And I said, well, did you put powder in it? Yeah, I never forget. I said, well, let's take it downstairs. So I put it in the vise and put the ball puller and pulled it out. And I said, now I'm going to go to the backyard. I don't want to dump that black powder in my trash can because it's too flammable. So I go out in the backyard, not a flame. So I went back downstairs and Gary's standing there and I said, well, I found the problem, Bill. And Gary says, no powder. And I said, bingo. He never admitted the whole time he was there that he forgot it was somebody else.
He loaded it, huh?
Yeah. One other time he wanted to come up, he had a sniper rifle of some sort. He always went on about his days as a sniper when he was in the military. And I said, well, come on up. I'll take you over to the gun club and we'll put some rounds through it. So he came up one day and I drove him over to I live in Coshocton, so I took him over to the gun club. And I get him all set up on the bench. We're going to shoot at 200 yards. And Bill's over there and I could see he's struggling. And I said, what's the matter? And he says, I can't see through this scope. There's something wrong with it. And I said, wow. And I looked at it and I could see that the back of the scope was bent clear down. There's no way that you were going to see through that tube. And I said, Bill, your scope's bent. Those Amish did it. It was always somebody else. I could go on for hours. I have a lot of stories. I'll only tell you one more thing. I always told Gary he was a saint for riding with him. He was a terrible driver. But I enjoyed him. I talked to him every week, 3 or 4 times. He would call, and I miss him every day. He was a good friend.
I got a couple little things. One of the other nephews, good to call him Uncle Bill, and Lena's my mom. And a couple of stories. You know, sometimes my weight fluctuates, and there's one time it was probably when I was in the Army, and I was getting a little heavy, and Uncle Bill was like, well, if you come up here, I'll handcuff you around a tree, and you'll lose weight real quick. And then when I went into the Army, I was 28, and every time I talked to him before, it was kind of just like, nephew-uncle relationship. But when I went to the Army, relationship changed. And it was like part of the brotherhood and that sort of thing. And so, you know, I went to Fort Benning. So he was always asking me about the Army, like, hey, you know, like, how's it going down there? Like, always asking me about that, and I was really proud to be part of that. So, a couple of little things. When I forget where we were, but I think I was in college or something, and I had some jeans with like, you know, rips or holes or something like that. He's like, "What kind of shotgun did you use to make those?" And then my brother used to wear really baggy pants, and he called them poopy pants. I was like, why do you call them that? He's like, "'Cause you could shit in them for a week and no one would know."
All right, I'll go next.
Go ahead, go.
So, I'm Mason Boyce. I would challenge all of you in this room to have spent the amount of time with him that I did, because
I will.
You'll challenge that?
I challenge that.
Only because I lived so close to him that he showed up at my house every day for the last 16 years. So I'm a state trooper. I was working out in Columbus, and I moved home. This is where I'm from. And, you know, marked patrol cars in the driveway. There's 3 people that stopped when I moved home. One was Jim Gaudio, and he was the mayor of Bartok subdivision, which really isn't a subdivision. But anyways, he wanted to let me know that he was in charge. And, whatever. And then Fred Paw's guy stopped by, which lives right down the road, and he was a super friendly guy. But then Bill stopped and never left. Like, I don't know if people think, like, former lieutenant with Highway Patrol, do people think if they know you, they get out of a speeding ticket? That's got to be the connection. I don't know.
Well, maybe, but he was regular when I was at St. Clairsville. You know, he would come out to my office and just sit there. Yeah. So what are you up to, Bill? Nothing.
So he, like, and I figured out that wasn't the case, because Bill was a police officer too. So, you know, usually you have that what do they call it? The courtesy that you're not writing other cops speeding tickets or whatever.
It makes you feel better. If we were driving down I-70 and there was a patrol car in the median, he would just pull in the median there.
Which literally, when people do that, they're like, "Why is this person here? Like, what are they doing?" So, hey, I'm Bill. So, for the next 16 years, he became part of my family. I don't know how to start this, but if you want a Tiger Force book, you've never read the story, I have 3 copies up here. Please take one. There's a bench here that I made for the boys. It's all the brass. It's not all the brass from his house. It's a lot of the brass from his house, and I made it. Bill, I'm a state trooper. I'm on a Tier 1 full-time SWAT team, whatever that means. And Bill connected with me. So he would call me. If he knew I was going to Governor DeWine's at 2 o'clock in the morning, at 2:01, my phone would ring, and he would call me, and we would have hours and hours of conversation. And then when I would get home, pulling in the driveway, he would show up in my driveway. So he had always had a saying. He was like, where to today? Where were you? And I had a little thing made for the guys with his brass. And the epoxy looks like it's raining, or it had rained on it, because he always said, if it ain't raining, you ain't training. Because a lot of people, a lot of police officers, a lot of people they're fair weather. They only do it when it's convenient. They only do it. But like Bill was not that guy. We aren't those type of troopers. Like, if it's raining, we're training. If it's 13 degrees, we're shooting out of the helicopter. And I would tell him that. He goes, well, if it ain't raining, you ain't training. He always said that. So I had that little thing made for him. I've got his hat that he always wore everywhere, and when we were going through some of his things, I think he had like 10 of them, maybe, at least. And,
of each different variety.
right. I don't know if you guys know this, but there's 28 guys on my team. Once a month, he would come to my house after going to Sam's Club, and we're a team that we get called, we go here, there, everywhere. Most people don't even know when we're there that we were there, and we disappear. We handle business and leave. A lot of times they're 20-hour days or several days in a row, whatever. Bill would bring me and my team food for the team, just to it would be several $100s every 2 months of peanut butter crackers, Gatorade, what's the troops want? And I would tell him, and he would show up, and he fed 28 dudes for the last, 15 years. So he was taking care of us. Couple funny stories. Well, this one's not funny. But the patrol doesn't do a good job of, I don't want to say they don't do a good job, but when you do something significant and involves taking another person's life, they're not going to recognize you for that. You take a life to save a life, and that has happened to me several times. Bill understood that. Well, the patrol has the highest award that you can get. It's called the O.W. Merrill Award. And you wear a nice little ribbon for saving the day, saving dogs from a burning car. Sometimes they seem rather insignificant compared to some of the things that maybe that I've done. So never being recognized for that stings a little bit. But okay, it's okay. I would do my job no matter what. I don't do it for awards. So Bill, knowing the highway patrol, after the first one happened, he's like, hey, I know about the O.W. Merrill Award, and they give people, troopers, when they save lives, it's really significant. They give them a gun. They give them that, the issue. It's really a prestigious award. So Bill shows up at my house and he's like, hey, you're O.W. Merrill with me. And every time it's happened, he gives me another gun. The last one, how many people know Bill had surgery on his hand?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Bill would come to my house, and we would sit there, and he would talk, he'd tell me the stories, and, well, it's time to go. And he's like, hey, Mason, help me up. So I reached over, and I grabbed him, and I pulled him up out of his seat. Well, I didn't realize it, but before he could say, no, he was already standing up, and I don't know does anybody know that story? If Mason tells you to get up or get out of the car, you better do it because he's going to rip your thumb off. Well, Bill had surgery on his thumb, and I ripped I feel terrible about it. I pulled his thumb completely off from where the surgeon attached it, which caused this really cool indentation so that he could actually hold a gun better. It worked out. So, he's like, help me up. I helped him up, and every time he told that story, I was like, geez, Bill, you gotta quit telling people that I hurt you. I didn't realize, when he would come to my house, he would be there a lot of time. There was, I would have an hour's worth of lawn to mow, and in 30 minutes the rain's coming, and in 15 minutes it's getting dark, and Bill pulls in. And so I would just shut it down and talk with him. But I know somebody had said he was a big advocate for the military, and he's a huge advocate for first responders and with the trauma that people experience. I think he knows what both of you guys get into. And he recognized that. and he understood. I was trying to make it a lot more funny than what it was, because he was always a good time at my house, but he filled a void that I didn't know was there until he was gone. But so the bench, the day we lost him, the world seemed to stand still. To some, he was a soldier, a warrior who answered a call when others stepped back. He carried courage in his heart and honor in every step. He faced challenges without fear, protected those who could not protect themselves. His strength inspired everyone around him, not because he was fearless, but because he chose to move forward despite his fears. I can tell you, in this book, there's a lot of times he was scared. Read about it. He was, to his children and his grandchildren, he was a dad and grandpa. He was a steady hand that taught life's lessons. I said it, I told myself I wasn't going to do this. The voice that offers guidance when the road became difficult, the arms that provided comfort when the world felt overwhelming. He celebrated victories, mended broken hearts, showed through his actions what it meant to love unconditionally. The greatest battles he ever fought were not on distant fields, but in daily sacrifices he made for his family. To his siblings, he was a brother. He shared childhood memories, secrets, laughters, and all the stories and dreams. He was a familiar voice on the other end of the phone. And I tell you, we talked 3 to 5 times a day. Like, I would show the guys at work, I'm like, Bill is calling me again. I gotta take this. You better answer. He was the protector when times were tough, and a friend who understood where they came from because he had walked the same path beside them. I think that's why he understood you and you guys, what you do, first responders, the other military guys in here, because he lived that life, the brotherhood that you talked about. To his friends, he was family. He was the one who showed up when needed. Like, I live down by the creek, and the creek gets up sometimes, and I'm like, dang it, I wish I had another pump. And I looked around, and Bill was gone. I don't know where he went. And like 15 minutes later, he showed up with a pump. Like, he was that guy that if you needed it, he showed up with it. He offered a helping hand without being asked. He could turn an ordinary moment into a lasting memory. His loyalty was unwavering. His friendship was a gift that many were fortunate enough to receive. The bench sits empty. A lot of times I would drive by and he'd be sitting out on the bench on the front porch, honk the horn, wave at him. The stories that are still told, probably always be told. I think on 1170, they'll probably tell that orangutan story every year, or at least play it. So about 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning on 1170, if you get the chance. And I think it's around Veterans Day, isn't it, or Memorial Day when they play it.
It's saved online on that Blue Day site.
Yeah.
I got it saved on my phone.
I have a CD. Courtesy of Bill. The photographs are still cherished. His laughter still echoes in the hearts of those who knew him. The pain of losing him remains, but so does the privilege of having loved him. We lost a warrior, but his courage remains. We lost a father, his lessons live on. We lost a brother, but his bond can never be broken. We lost a friend, but his memory continues to walk beside us. Though he's gone from our sight, he'll never be gone from our hearts. His legacy is written. not in stone, but in the lives he touched, the love he gave, the example he left behind. And as long as we remember him, the warrior, the father, the brother, and the friend will never truly be lost. It was my pleasure knowing your dad.
All right, buddy. Straighten up. Well, I don't like that thing. I ain't gonna change. I am who I am. All right, I'm Frank Oakland. Welcome to Start. Bill and I have known each other, actually Bill knew me and my whole family since we were little kids. I'd always got it confused. I grew up in Panama, in Central America, around a bunch of SF guys. Anybody in here SF? Turd. Now, my father and all those SF guys, that's who brought me up. People like Bill. It was amazing having a childhood like that. There was a carpenter on my paper route when I was a little kid in Panama. You may not remember that, but they didn't tip very well. But Bill, when I moved back home, when Dora and I retired, I moved back home. We opened this little place up. We didn't know what the hell we were going to get into, but we opened it up. Bill was one of the first guys up there. He was always hacking on me. Always hacking on me. So I made him the shitter cleaner. He was, I need a job. I said, well, you could be the shitter cleaner. You're an army guy. He always kicked, he laughed at that all the time. So I get a phone call one morning. It was like Mason, he called me every day. He'd say, hey, Senator, or whatever he'd say. But I get a phone call one morning. Bill goes, hey, do you realize that your great-great-great-great-grandmother had relations with my, or your great-great-great-grandfather had relations with my great-great-great-grandmother? I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Well, before Ohio became a state, an Elizabeth Carpenter married a William Hoagland. Shit, I didn't know anything about that. I ain't never read that book yet. So he gives me the damn book, I read it. No shit, we're related. I'm not so sure if I'm that proud of it. But he reminded me of that every day he was out here cleaning chairs. No, we always called him Uncle Bill out here, and he loved animals. I've heard everybody talk, but nobody say anything about animals. Now, Uncle Bill, this is when we were in the old building. We did RDT&E here, research, develop, test, and evaluate. I blew shit up. I mean, we had people out here all the way to Steubenville complaining because the ground was shaking. You know, I'd go out there and set up a demo charge, and Bill's like, you think you got that right? I says, hell yeah, I got that right. Stand back. I got this. And then the charge didn't go off. And I'd walk down. He says, you ain't going down there now, are you? I said, yeah, I'm going down there. I'm going to daggone render the damn thing safe. Remember that, Jamie?
I do.
We walked all the way back, and we had this, what was like a 50-pound charge.
Yeah.
I said, well, I told his son this not long ago. I said, you ain't going to hear anything. You won't even hear yourself scream because you'll just evaporate when it goes off. So Bill always thought I was kind of loose. But yeah, we had a blast out here. Bill was up here all the time. That's why I challenged him, Mason. Because Bill was up here all the time. He was messing around with me, my brother, Jamie, De Niro, whoever else was up here. And I've heard a lot of stories about Bill and guns. I'm going to be honest with you. The man couldn't shoot for shit. He would grab a damn gun, he'd put the cheapest thing on it he could get, and then he'd try to turn around and sell it to you. He did. He always got here. Every gun, every bullet that man had was the greatest thing in the world. I don't know, He bought this at some super place, he got a super deal on it, but he's about ready to turn around and sell it to you, but he wanted a profit. Who was this one that said he was an entrepreneur? That some bitch sold snake oil. I'm telling you, when Jamie found out that cheaperthandirt.com was selling cheap bullets, we had a stack of Bill Carpenter bullets out here. I go, Bill, what the hell you gonna do? I'm gonna sell it. Who are you selling it to? All his friends. He would go down to all, Mason probably bought some. He went down and sold bullets to everybody he could. We were selling Glocks out of here like crazy. I don't know how many Glocks Bill bought. He bought everything. He'd have everything shipped out here. Even people I don't even know, he would have shit shipped out here, and he would sell it. Somebody else, I said, Bill, I want a piece of that profit. He stopped selling stuff. No, I've known Bill ever since I was a little kid. Him and my father got along together real well when they were on the SF. I don't know if you did too, Mr. Carpenter, or not.
Yeah, Rich. Yeah.
Rich, they called him Dick. My dad and them, they all had served together. And Bill would tell me story after story about the crazy stuff my father would do. But I'll never forget, we were sitting in there, and I had just retired out of the team, so I was getting ready to go work for a certain government agency. Since he's got that thing on, I ain't gonna say the real thing. So if you look up here, there's a picture of Billy Wall. The program that Billy Wall had is the program that I took over for that certain government agency. Bill had known all about that. He's like, boy, you're in some crazy shit, aren't you? I go, well, I'm just doing my job to, serve this nation to the best of my ability. He said, you ain't gotta do it all like that, though. He sounded just like my dad. Because in 1993, when we chased down Pablo Escobar, delete that. If you don't mind, turn the damn thing off.
I knew he was from Billville. And so, hey, I'm up my dad's hunting, he comes up, and, I can't remember if you previously met my dad yet or not, but, we got to meet him, we're talking, and then I'm thinking as he drives away, I'm like, oh man, what did I just unleash on this? This guy's going to be calling me every day, like, man, your dad won't get out of here. But no, it's true, like, when he passed, I'm looking at his call logs, and I think, you could see daily the phone tree, between talking to you and me and my brother and cousins and uncle. Where was I going? Oh, but yeah, he'd always be filling me in on what Mason was doing. I didn't have to talk to Mason every day. He's like, oh, he's up at the sniper's nest up in the lights, the Ohio State team. Here's this picture, that picture. But I just want to make sure we acknowledge Mason, because at the time my dad passed, we had all kinds of stuff going on in my family. My wife's sister was passing. I had some surgery coming up, so it was a really hard time for us. But, without Mason, I don't think we would have got through all this, because anything we called for, he was willing to help. Jax is always there, so we truly appreciate you guys.
And Gary.
And Jennifer. Just getting there to Gary and Jennifer as well. I mean, I don't know how many times I was on the phone with Gary and he's running over to check this, check that, helping us move stuff out, making sure everything's secure, all that kind of stuff. But, I moved up to Wisconsin 20-some years ago, and then we started a family, and just life gets busy, kids in sports, running them here, running them there. Started getting kids in college. I started teaching for a company as a side job, so I think every time my dad called, I was in another state, sometimes in another country. My brother's kind of doing the same thing. Like, if we had a day off, we're not home, we're teaching someplace. So we didn't get to get down here as much as we wanted to, but I know Mason said that he kind of felt a void for Mason, and Mason and I talked about that, but I think he felt a big void for him too, so. I think we're all grateful for what he did over the years. Truly gratitude. So that's what I got to say. Thank you.
Sir? I am Tom's grandson. I got to come and hang out with Uncle Bill a couple times when I was really young, and I haven't been back to Ohio in a while, but I wanted to say that Bill taught me how to shoot guns when I was really little, and really gave me some formative childhood memories out here, because I was born and raised in Las Vegas, and you don't get the opportunity to do stuff that you do out here in the country, and it was very valuable to me as a person, and I would never forget that.
All right, I think we, unless there's somebody else. Yes, sir.
My name's Chad Bones. I really only met Bill maybe about a year ago. I was sitting in the VA clinic in St. Clairsville, Ohio. I'm a retired Special Forces veteran, combat veteran, sitting there with my mind awash and stuff, and all of a sudden the guy starts talking to me, and it's Bill. And he reaches out to me and he starts inquiring about my well-being. And Bill was really a great guy, and we went out. I called him. I said, "Hey, let's get together and have dinner." So we went to the Sun's Italy in Bel Air. They have a spaghetti dinner on Thursday night. And he said, "Well," he said, "I want to bring my friend Johnny with me." I said, "Fine." So I met Johnny Pooh, who another story. He told me he was from Rayland Ridge, and we started talking. I was telling Johnny, I said, "Well, my uncle lived out there, and I used to go in the springtime back in the '60s and work on his farm and stuff." My Uncle Henry. Johnny looked at me and said, "Well, he's my uncle too." So we both shared an uncle from different sides of the family. And Bill brought that together. But I just wanted to point out the thing that struck me about Bill was his kindness, his ability to reach out to people, communicate to people. He gave me this outfit I have on it. And I shared a book with him that was written about a mission I had in Desert Storm. And, and we'd exchange calls, and then time went on, and one day I said, I haven't talked to Bill lately. And then I went to reach out to him, and I found out that he passed. So I just wanted to come here. Johnny Pooh's the only guy I know in this room, besides everybody else. But I just wanted to come because I appreciated what Bill had done for me. He reached out to me. He offered to help me with, with some benefit things through the VA. And it was just, a guy that would reach out and befriend me, and I appreciated that about Bill. That's what I wanted to tell you about.
Thank you for sharing. I can tell you with the amount of time that he spent at my house talking, I have probably heard multiple stories about all of you individually, every single one of you. I just wonder, like we said earlier, Bill was kind of the telegraph for everybody, so I'm sure we all have, you've probably heard stories about one another. Go ahead.
I'll just say real quick, my name's Brent Nemeth, and I'm from Rayland. Bill had my grandmother in high school, and I don't know if Pauline Grabowski?
Yeah.
Okay, well anyway, so from the time I was a kid, my grandmother would receive flowers on her birthdays, and it continued on until about 10 years ago, until she passed. But Bill and I were good friends too, not as much as like you, Mason, but I was one of those ones where Bill would just show up at my place and he'd call, "Nemo, what's happening?" And it was a lot of stuff. But I just remember that Bill would always tell me, he said, "Your grandmother may be the person that had the most profound impact on me in my life." He said there was a time in high school where he said I was getting a little bit maybe out of hand. And he said, my grandmother, she was a strict lady, that old-fashioned conservative value, but I guess she wasn't scared to tell anybody, "Get your act in order," and she did that with Bill. So Bill would, always talk about my grandmother and how she affected, but like I said, the kind of person, you're all talking about the kindness. And this was a man who never forgot his high school teacher that had the impact, and like I said, every birthday, my grandmother would just look forward to receiving those flowers till she was 90. So just wanted to get that out there. It goes way back, even when he was a kid. That big heart, that's Bill. He had it his whole life. So
what an awesome way to close this up with sending flowers to somebody that made an impact. I know he made an impact on everybody in here. With that, Tom, Bill's older brother, would you mind, I know there's some people that are probably pretty hungry, and the goodness of some of the people in this room, there's some food to eat. He's going to bless the food, and maybe we can break some bread together.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to tell one more story. One more story.
Yes, sir.
And I'll say the prayer. So, when I'm in the Army, and I'm in Germany,
I'm a buck sergeant. And my first sergeant, his name was John Vittori. He was about 6'3", went about 250, and we used to say like one of those knuckle draggers. Well, as time went by, I come to find out, I'm in Vietnam, I come to find out that John Vittori is now the sergeant major of Bill's battalion in Vietnam. And I happened to run into John Vittori, and he always had this expression, he always called everybody young man. You know, here I am having there and looking, the hell are you up to, young man? You know, that's the way he talked. I said, hey, Sergeant Major, I just want to let you know, I said, my brother is in your battalion. What's he doing? I said, well, he's in one of the companies up there. I said, but he mentioned, you know, that he wanted to go to the Tiger Force. He said, I'll handle it. So, now that's, the story ended there. So Bill, later on, he tells a story about, he gets the word comes down through the chain. Carpenter, Sergeant Major Vittori wants to see you. Okay? And they send him on down there. And Bill said when he gets down there, now this is Bill. He walks in and said, hey, Sergeant Major, I'm here, Bill Carpenter. And he said, yeah, I know your brother Tom. And Bill said, I understand you got a job for me. And Vittori looked at him and said, job? The hell do you think this is, General Motors? and he said, no, I'm going to take you under my wing for a while before you go up to Tiger Force. And he did. He was a great mentor. So with that right there, we bow our heads, please. Heavenly Father, we thank you that we could come together and enjoy the life of Bill Carpenter. And we miss him dearly, Lord. And we thank you that you brought us together and shared these stories of Bill and remember his life. And I ask, Lord, that you would watch over us, keep us safe from evil and harm as we return. And thank you, Lord, that we can share this food from your bounty. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.